Alright then, so the final mission for the Evolved. I do have the Survivors Besieged mission to do, but I've basically gone through looking at videos for the Evolved's counterattack, and it looks a little bit easier than the Survivors one, so I figure I'd save the hardest game or mission from this campaign for last. And I think the Survivors one will be it, so yeah.
Thank you, Dakenho. Your protection allowed the battle plan to spread with the other warlords, and now the slugs will be crushed under our feet. We have forced them all back to their main base. The worms that remain are well defended, but by no means unbeatable. They fear us. It is Judgment Day for the Symmetrics, Dakenho. Once again we will be at peace with the gods, and the Scourge need never again be repeated. You are our greatest warrior, Dakenho. Lead us to victory!
Counterattack. The Symmetrics have been forced back to their main base. Destroy them, destroy their base, and win the war for the surface. That is the mission. Now, this one's a little bit easier because it looks like you can actually sort of get away with attacking one of the enemy's fortifications here really early on. So I'm going to basically do that in a moment, but first things first, let's set up our base here.
Yeah.
These guys over here. Oops, that's not what I want. I want to get the blacksmith. Get some power stations here. Just gonna get these guys to pop up here a little bit. Basically, there's stuff up here you can basically get to, so we'll attack that in a moment.
Building ready! Building ready! Building ready!
You're talking to me? I'm alive! I'm alive! Oh yeah! I'm alive! Oh yeah! I'm alive! I'm alive! I'm alive! Speak! Sure thing! I'm alive! I'm alive! You're talking to me? I'm alive! Sure thing! I'm alive! Yeah. What? Sure thing! Sure thing!
Alright, let's get this underway.
Alive! Yeah. Oh.
Get this attack going.
I'm alive! I'm alive!
Just gonna go over here as fast as possible. There we go. Some guys are coming to attack us. That's fine. We'll deal with them.
Smarter. Pondering. Completed.
What? Sure thing. I'm alive. You're talking to me? I'm alive. The journey has begun. You're talking to me? I'm alive. Oh, yeah.
Pondering.
What? Sure thing. I'm alive. You're talking to me? I'm alive. What?
Just gotta set these guys up here a little bit.
I'm alive. Speak. I'm alive. I'm alive. I'm alive. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Building now smarter.
Sure thing. I'm alive.
Pondering.
I'm alive. Yeah. Sure thing. You're talking to me? Sure thing. What? Oh yeah. Sure thing. Yeah.
Airplane's up here.
Completed.
Alright, so basically give you a sort of idea of like how this mission sort of unfolds. You basically have a base over here and a base over here that are basically attacking you simultaneously. And if you basically are quick in the early parts of this game, you can basically wipe out this like base up here really fast, so I just did so. Because like, you know, why not?
Pondering. Building ready.
What? Oh yeah. Speak.
some like, you know, guys here is built up. You know, I haven't really been saying this, but there's a lot I actually really like about this game. And I sort of like, you know, feel I've been sort of like dismissive, like, you know, of its gameplay, but I'm not that basically the game itself here, I really don't like its gameplay, but at the same time I admire, like, you know, a lot of stuff basically did here. The fact that they basically have like multi-units being able to build from like, you know, Canada Conquer style buildings is like, you know, one thing they sort of did here, and Adventure Sea is basically another thing they basically did. But they also have like a very like sort of tight gameplay where these missions are like really fast, like paced, as opposed to like, you know, Command & Conquer is basically a little bit more slower. And it's just like a lot to basically appreciate about this game.
Thundering.
I should probably push an attack now, so...
Completed.
Let's get to it and wipe them out.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, they're trying to survive, but you know, they won't. I should probably note, by the way, that the two factions here, there's actually 3 factions basically on this map, because this faction here is actually different from the discipline over here, which is why these guys aren't building over here. Basically, I wiped out their base before they could do anything. And yeah, it's a fairly quick mission if you know what you're doing in this one, so... There we go.
Building now smarter.
I really don't need to show these guys basically off, but I figure I should actually show off the wasp at least once, so we're just going to wait a little bit while I obviously build a wasp up. Why let's just build these for a heck of it, so... Rotor cannon, grape shot, guard tower, the useless Majore. You know, I have a feeling that the wasps I was basically building before, in like the last mission, these basically take a lot of time to build, but they also like, you know, take a lot of credits build as well. I'll show off what the wasp is basically all about, because this is actually kind of a useless weapon. Just to throw it out there, it's sort of like the nuke from like, you know, Red Alert. Basically the nukes from Red Alert, they were useful for like wiping out like, you know, structures and stuff like that, but here you're basically like sort of building up a nuke that like, you know, it takes forever to build. So there's that. Oh, we have lots of oil to make use of in this one, but whatever. All the oil. I know you guys didn't really see it by the way, but when I was basically playing the, you know, the 14th mission for the Evolve here, I actually had like my oil get blown up on me, and you didn't actually see it, but it was blown up, and for some reason I was wondering, why is my credits basically ticking down still, when I was basically trying to see if I could build another oil derrick, and I was actually building a wasp at that time, I didn't realize it, and then like, you know, I went below 1,000, and it's like, oh well, I can't build any oil derrick, now I better restart, but I probably actually could have like, you know, beaten like the 14th mission for Evolve, actually kind of like on the first try, if I was actually like, you know, paying attention. You build a wasp basically in like the 14th mission, but it doesn't really benefit you, because you'll basically see why I'm actually like, you know, use it here, but whatever. But yeah, I don't know if that's something about this like this game here. I actually very much like the sort of like, you know, gameplay elements they actually sort of introduced in KKND. I'll note that basically like this is like, you know, sort of like a merger between like StarCraft and like, you know, Command & Conquer. Because Command & Conquer is basically always about like, you know, sort of strategic like, you know, gameplay, where like, you know, StarCraft and like, you know, Warcraft before were basically all about like, you know, more like tactical gameplay. But this sort of like mixes the two, because you basically have sort of like a fast action sort of like, you know, Command & Conquer that is very tactical. It's very simple tactics, but you know, it's tactical. And I did enjoy that about that a little bit. Now I will note by the way that in terms of like the factions and like, you know, stuff like that, I did think like, you know, they were a little bit too samey for like KKND. Essentially like you have like the beasts that are like, you know, on the Evolve side, like they're like, you know, blacksmith stuff. But at the same time, all the weapons were basically very similar, so you basically had missiles on like one side, missiles on the other side, you had like, you know, gunfire on one side, gunfire on the other. The Evolve did have like their like, you know, their walking crabs and like, you know, their giant beetles and stuff like that, but they sort of like felt like, you know, how can I put this? Basically, the giant beetles just like the barrager from like, you know, the other side. Basically, it's this guy like green missiles as opposed to like, you know, a barrage of them. And if you look at the Scorpion, for example, which I don't have it here, but you know, the Scorpions basically are like, you know, let's just spit stuff at you, because like, you know, why not? But they didn't really feel distinct in like sort of like their gameplay as opposed to say like Command & Conquer, where like, you know, you basically have the like the knob basically having like there's like, you know, flames of like, you know, revolution and stuff like that, and like, you know, they basically have like, you know, a layer like a peel of tanks and stuff like that, where you look at the GDI and you're basically like, you know, a more traditional like, you know, basic like weapon like, you know, armada of like, you know, huge tanks and like, you know, missile launchers and stuff like that. And yes, Earthblood low, Earthblood low, Earthblood low. It'll build out here so they have to, take longer to get to it.
Earthblood low.
As for this takes like 1,000 to build, but these take like 2,000. So this takes a very long time to build. These like wasps, even though they're like not that expensive. And yes, it takes a long time to build up a wasp. So I really should have been building this a little bit earlier, but whatever. I'll basically show you off what the wasp is basically all about, and then we'll, we'll finish it up.
The wasps await.
The wasp will wait. Yes. So basically, it's target just like an airstrike.
Earthblood low.
There's the wasp right there. So that's what the wasp basically does. It's basically just a bomber. Nothing special about it. Although it's very useful if you have like a clump of like enemy units to deal with, but whatever. Mission complete.
In the year 60 of the new land, the Earth was saved for good. The symmetrics, flushed from their nests, were crushed upon the burning land, silenced forever. The gods smiled on the Earth when the last symmetric fell, and the threat of a second scourge burned away with the final fires. One warrior, Ho, went down in legend that day as the bringer of peace. That warrior's leadership, courage, and love of the land bestowed the greatest gift of all to the people, that the evolved would be granted continued evolution.
Alright, well, that was essentially like, KKND Extreme. And that's basically for the evolved. Now, I will note, by the way, if I basically wait long enough here, it'll basically like, pop up the credits. So we'll just like talk for a little bit, basically like in the title screen here, I guess. So yeah, there's basically like a lot of elements basically I liked from like KKND, but I'll note that just to throw it out there, I did not actually enjoy the game itself. I'll note that I'm basically much more like a traditional take a long time basically play type of like RTS type of player. So I like the old Command & Conquer or like Doom 2000 where it's a lot more like you have to sort of wait basically like to build up your forces and then like send them out. And KKND is basically a lot more like streamlined to be like very very quick battles and stuff like that. So basically you have like multiple units being able to build like out of Command & Conquer like style like buildings and stuff like that. You have like essentially like the veterancy system. So basically the idea here is like you want to basically build up a lot of units and send them out really quickly, and if like they're getting overwhelmed, you want to send them back to like preserve their like veterancy and stuff like that. And it's basically like that sort of thing that I basically like I can appreciate it, but I don't really care for the gameplay. I also note that like some things I really didn't like the fact that like even though like it's like sort of like a game that sort of like encourages you to sort of keep your guys alive. The repair base are a little bit too slow basically to repair your stuff, so there's like no real reason basically to build like try to repair your vehicles and stuff like that. So why bother them? I also found the infantry like as you see the snipers and like the crazy Harry, which I didn't really build, but whatever, they get a little bit like overpowered because like you basically build a bunch of snipers and it's like sort of wreck everything basically in their path. They can be like overwhelmed with, like beetles and stuff like that, so like basically like wipe out like frogs of them, but if there basically is nothing basically there to wipe them out, the snipers are basically just going to like destroy everything in their path. So there's that. There's also the thing about chaos mode. I don't think you can actually like play against like survivor or like evolve versus evolved. It's basically just always gonna be like survivor against evolved. So there is that as well. I think. I haven't really like tested it, but we're just gonna wait for the credits here, so we're just gonna wait for that to happen anyways. And what else I'll show you basically say about this game. So, yeah, basically like, fast paced, you can't really repair your stuff, veterancy, and like, ability to like, build multiple units basically all at once. I will note there is like a KKND 2, basically like a sequel to this game, and that'll be sort of like fun basically to check out at some point. But this is sort of like throw this out there. Something I actually like, figure I should actually point out as well. I don't know if you basically play like, StarCraft or Warcraft or like, Command and Conquer. You'll note that basically in those like games, units will basically take like they'll take varying damage based on the weapons that are being fired at them. So if you basically have like, infantry firing at like, a tank, for example, if they're firing like this for like small arm fire, it's not gonna really hurt them. But if they fire like a rocket, it's gonna hurt them a lot. And on the flip side, basically, if a tank is basically trying to fire at like, a bunch of troops, then like their little like, high caliber weapons going to basically be missing a lot because they're not really designed to basically fight infantry. So there's lots of bouncing stuff that is basically done in those games. And this is even true for StarCraft because you basically see like, certain weapons like say the vulture like bikes from like, the Terran side. You'll see like they're explosives. They won't do a whole lot of damage versus like a tank, but do like a lot of damage basically versus like, a small like, target like a Terran or like a Zergling. And you'll basically see like, the Hydralisks basically they have like, reduced damage versus like, Terran Marines, but they'll basically do like full damage basically versus like, a high like, threat target like a siege tank. There isn't like any of that really basically in play here in like, KKND. I think all the weapons basically do the same amount of damage to like the same targets. It's just like, certain weapons will basically have like different radius of like attack. So you'll basically have like missiles that have like, a high like, degree of like splash damage, and you'll have like, the snipers which are basically like, they do a lot of damage, but they have to basically focus on one target basically all the time. So there's that. And that's basically the same for like a lot of like the air units as well. So like the all-can like, unit for like the survivors, basically like it's a single target like, fast rated fire type of unit. But you basically look at the the Marauder like crab, and basically the, like, it basically fires like high like, a high degree of missiles that basically like, are very accurate and do a lot of splash damage. So there's that basically about it. I have to say, like, I actually very much prefer like, the sort of idea of like, having like units basically have like differing amount of like, armor and stuff like that. I won't say it's like, the only thing that basically makes like, these RTSs basically good, because how basically like, KKND basically did it was actually fine, because infantry basically get overwhelmed by like, splash damage pretty fast because they don't have a lot of HP. And hey, there's the creds finally. So there's the creds basically popping up. Yeah, I found out about this, by the way. If you basically wait 5 minutes, you'll basically see the creds basically pop up in like, front of the title screen. So why not? Let's see. Let's look at it from here. I think there might actually be a button basically for it, but whatever. We'll see that when we get to it. But yeah, I'll note that basically like, there's a couple of things like that, but like, I think it could have been like, a lot more like, add to it to basically make it a little more like, fleshed out. Like, it's fine obviously how I basically did it in KKND, where like, explosives will basically overwhelm like infantry, and like, you have like, high like, penetrating like damaging type of attacks like, the all-can turret to basically like flush out units as well. One moment, take a drink of water. But I think there's like a lot that could have been done to sort of like, basically like build on the gameplay here by like, a lot besides like, the unit management and like, a lot of the other things that basically did here. Like, to throw it out there, I see a lot of comments, by the way, like, about this game, like, being like stated. Essentially, a lot of like the reviewers back in the day figured that like, KKND was it's just a clone of like, CNC. And to that degree, I sort of agree, but I also disagree, because it does some different things as well. But if I was basically compare this, let's say like, Dark Rain, for example, Dark Rain is basically like, very distinct in like, it's like sort of terrain functions and like, unit management. So you could call like Dark Rain to be like a CNC clone as well, but at the same time, Dark Rain basically like, it had like, sort of like, tactical like edge of like, hover tanks basically can hover over water, but they like, will basically be slowed if they basically try and like go up hills and stuff like that, because they're not really made for it. Or if you basically have like, infantry, they can walk over like everything except for water, but they're like slow. And that's the thing about like, Dark Rain. Basically, it's like set apart now. Like, how you can be sort of like, strategical with like, the different units, and basically how to basically play them. And it basically had like a sort of like, same sort of like, function of like, weapons basically like don't do like varying damage and stuff like that. But when you basically have like, all like the different like strategy elements that the, like Dark Reign basically did. That sort of like helped to sort of like separate from, let's say, Command and Conquer or like StarCraft. And of course, they did Dark Reign 2, which is just crap. But I guess Dark Reign 2 looked good, and that's about like all I can basically say about it. But whatever. All right, well, we're just gonna basically just like watch the credits here, and I'll be basically be it for like this video. I'll basically do like the Survivors like final mission basically soon enough. But for now, we'll just wait and like see this and go from there. And yes, Electronic Arts. I'm not sure if they basically helped to publish it or if they bought the rights to it, but whatever. They're the ones who own this game, I guess. And it looks like that's it for the credits too, so there we go, we're back to like the main screen. Alright, well, I'll see you guys in the next one, which will basically be the Survivor final mission. Until then, take care.